who just comes back without a word, without anything? Like, I just can't. I just can't. I can't imagine. Hi guys, I'm Tony and I'm the Bored Housewife. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. Please excuse any delay that there may or may not have been with the output of my videos. I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary to my lovely, sweet husband, Arvin Andrews. So I did not record this weekend or right before in preparations for my anniversary. So if I didn't do what I planned on doing, which was making a lot of videos ahead of time, and that there's a small delay, maybe I'll have a couple of days, I do apologize. But today, if you saw the title, you already know how this is going to end, but I have to give you guys some backstory. But before I start, I want to just say, if this video goes a little bit too long, I probably will be splitting it into 2 parts. So let's just get into it from there. Let's name her. I don't have her permission, of course, to tell this story, but considering it affected my life so much, I could tell whatever story I want to. But I won't use her name. So let's call her Sammy. Yeah, let's call her Sammy. From now on, her name is Sammy. So when I started high school, I didn't really know anybody. I would say a few people from middle school came over to my high school, but most of them went to the school that was closest to that middle school, but I no longer lived in that district. So because I didn't live in that district anymore, I had to go to the school that was closest to me. So that meant that I didn't really know a lot of people other than the handful of people who came over from my middle school. My high school was very large. And since it was large, it was kind of a flood of new people, and then this small group of people that I knew from middle school. Not necessarily my friends from middle school, but people that I actually knew and could recognize their face, knew their name. So because of this, it was a little strange. I didn't have any initial people to go into high school with and just hang out with. Initially, before high school, I did not have, well, even in high school, I didn't have the privilege of just hanging out with my friends like outside of school. And because of that, I spent a lot of my time either focusing on schoolwork or focusing on friends. And yes, I'm good at juggling them. So I did well in school and I was able to make some friends in high school. It's just the very first month of high school, it was lonely. It was stressful, you know, and within the first couple of weeks, I devised a plan. I devised a plan to make a small group of people that were in that high school that I had seen previously, walking around, talking to each other, my friends. And I did this by letting them cut me in the ridiculously long line that was our lunch line, because people had to go to lunch between, I think it was 4th period and 6th period in an 8-period day. So because of this, and like I said, there was a large number of people, like 500 to 700 people in the school, and all ranges of class, upperclassmen and lowerclassmen all go to lunch together. Now my freshman year, they had off-campus lunch, so all upperclassmen were allowed to leave. And since they were allowed to leave and go to lunch, that dwindled the number greatly. But you're still talking about maybe 250 amount of people, about, you know, children trying to stand in a line and then be ushered in one by one, also having to show their ID, showing what lunch period they have, so you know that you're not letting people who should be in class just sit in the lunchroom. So because of this, I was able to get, you know, a small group of friends that I would like to hang out with, but unfortunately that group of friends weren't in my actual classes, and that was because they were IB students and I was an honor student. IB is above honor students. They take college level classes along, you know, with their regular coursework. So because of that, I wasn't able to be in their classes, at least not all of them or most of them. So because of that, we had lunch together. We would see each other in the hallway. I would consider them my friends, and especially one of them became my best friend, but that's a later on story. But because of that, I had to now make other friends, which is fine. You know, you don't have to stick with one group of people in high school. You don't have to just have that one group of people and just cut everybody else out of your life. But I kind of, you know, devised a plan to make these people my friends. Otherwise, I didn't really have the social skills to know how to just, you know, you don't walk up to a person and be like, will you be my friend? Like, that's elementary school. In high school, you have to have something in common with these people. And so at first I found it hard to, you know, make friends. So, but within a couple weeks of being in high school, getting my bearings, acknowledging that I had, you know, nominal freedom compared to when I was in middle school, it was just a little bit stressful. But I met this girl named Sammy, and she was in my ROTC class, because I took ROTC class for my the first 2 years of high school, and she was also in, I believe it was biology, or whatever the prerequisite to biology is in high school. So we were in the class together. I don't know how we started to talk. I think we might have been partnered up. If it was a science class, that's definitely a possibility. Otherwise, I don't know. We just started to talk, and very quickly she became very important in my life. And I just have to put it out there that it wasn't like she tricked me into being her friend. I wanted to be her friend. I was lonely. High school's hard enough. You know, there are a lot of things that you now have to get used to. And you're now, just put it this way, you're children within a group of other children, but older children who are not really children anymore. So there's a lot of complex things that you have to go through in high school. But if you're watching this, I'm sure you already know that. Anyway, me and Sammy, we got friends, became friends. She became very close to me. I, you know, walked to class with her. We talked about different things. But very soon after that, and then for the rest of freshman year, she had family problems. She had problems with her mom, you know, being put out, you know, that her mom was so evil. And she had problems with other people, and not necessarily people in the school, because, you know, when, you know, I saw her around other people, they felt the same way I did. They cared about her, they liked her. She was a very charismatic person. She was very easy to talk to, and it was easy for her to get up and talk to everybody. So I admired that. I did. And it's crazy how fast things changed, because it became very drama filled. Like every day it was something extreme. And I'm not just talking about a normal fight with your parent where, you know, you might come into school the next day and be like, I hate that person. Like, they just want to ruin my life. Not teenage angst. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about she's saying, my mother beat me. I have no place to live. She would be crying about different things. I was a very sensitive kid. I was a sensitive person in general. Like, I cared a lot. I cared a lot about people. I cared a lot about the situations. Like, if a person told a story and it was sad, I would get upset. So she would come to me and she would be crying and saying all these things, and I would try and give her advice the best that I knew how, but I'm 14, 15, like, I don't know nothing. And so I would try very hard, but it would be a very emotionally draining on me. Like, people would see me, and, you know, people who knew how bubbly and happy I could be would be like, what's wrong? And it was just like, I just can't. Like, it's hard to remember all the stories. And I say stories because it was found out later that stuff, even though maybe something was true, majority was not. She liked attention. She liked being the victim. She liked being able to make somebody that emotionally invested. And I fell for it. I was very emotionally invested. And honestly, when preparing to talk about this story, I didn't know if I really wanted to talk about it, but I felt like it was a long time coming, just because it affected my life so much and how I care about people, how I get emotionally invested, I should say. And I was talking to one of my friends, and her name's Tawana, and we were going to do the video together. Unfortunately, our schedules didn't line up to be able to do this. She doesn't live here with me, so we would have had to do it via like Skype or Google Hangout or something like that. If she ever is able to like put her 2 cents into this video, I would be happy to record with her, and then I'll put that video up for you guys, because she went through some of the same things, but she was a sophomore when we were freshmen. So that was already a change in dynamic. So she was able to be outside and to hang out with her outside of school. So I feel like she was actually emotionally invested a little bit more. Like, she wasn't as sensitive as me, so it probably didn't affect her necessarily as bad, but she was more involved. So back to the story. This girl just came up with a lot of different things. And the reason that I say that these things aren't true is because, as I said, Tawana got to hang out with her. She got to be around her mother, got to, go to her house, see different things that she told me, like, my mother never lets me do anything. She doesn't, she's constantly yelling and cursing at me, and different things, and things that we bonded over, It was easy to fall into this trap that she laid, because I think that maybe she saw in me that I wanted a reason to bond, maybe a reason to feel connected to somebody, and then she fed off of anything I said and then made it 10 times worse coming from her. And so she would just say all these things, and then Tawana would like later on tell me, like, I met her mom. Her mom is super sweet. And I know what you're going to say. Like, people put on fronts around strangers or other people. But she said things like, she wanted to leave out. Sammy wanted to leave out. And, her curfew was coming up. And so her mom asked, what time will you be back? And she said a time that was like an hour away. And her mom was like, that's, you're just now leaving out. You might want to, give yourself more time. Or would give her money to like go and have fun and stuff like that. Like, how you can tell somebody is just being nice in the moment, but that the person who they're being nice to might get in trouble later. Like, it wasn't that feel. And she also told people that I was her sister. And so because we had some, physical similarities, I just went along with it, why not? I didn't have any sisters living with me or, a part of my life. So it was kind of fun to pretend like this girl who I looked up to was my older sister. By maybe 9 months or a year or something. I don't know. But it was just so emotionally draining. Like, I just can't express to you guys enough how emotionally draining this was. Like, I'm talking, I would probably be in tears like a couple times a week just dealing with her, just feeling like there were also times I had to walk on eggshells because she would get mad at me and then she wouldn't talk to me, and feeling like I'm so close to this one person and then they're just like being ripped out of my life. That was traumatic, and it was just so hard to fully get away from it. I would have classes where, I would have been exhausted, like just from all the things that had been said and done and everything, to the point where I would just have my head down the whole class. And I remember specifically in Spanish class once, I had my head down the entire class, and then the teacher came out with either a pop quiz or some type of worksheet, but he assumed because my head was down I couldn't either be listening or know the content. So of course he gave me the paperwork. I filled it out, I handed it in. He was like, how? He was like, how? I've been watching you the whole class. I know you weren't cheating, but how? Like, your head was down. I thought you were sleeping. What's wrong? And it's just like, I couldn't even explain, because how do you tell an adult that all this stuff is happening without causing problems? But I did get to that point one day. So because of everything, and I'm talking months of this, she one day came in and said that she had been sexually assaulted. And I take that very seriously. And she made me promise not to say anything, but I wasn't the type of person who could just be like, okay, you know, nothing happened to you, or okay, something did happen to you, but I'm gonna stay quiet. Like, neither one of those things were an option for me. So I went to my science teacher and I posed a hypothetical question to her, that if I knew something and then somebody had gotten hurt and they didn't want to say something, what were my options? What could I do? Because it makes no sense if I say something, they go to her, ask her, and then she says nothing, because the only thing they can do is report it. They're mandatory reporters, but they cannot do anything if she won't say anything. And she made it very clear to me that she was not gonna say anything, that she knew the person, that it wasn't any family member or anything like that, but she knew the person and it wasn't gonna happen. But after so many months, I was also, I won't even say I was skeptical, because I wasn't. It was just a feeling like, what am I getting myself into? What have I gotten myself into? And so, you know, I would ask her questions, trying to, you know, get a better understanding. And then later on, like I would say less than a month later, she told me that she was pregnant. And on one hand, I was excited for her. You know, the thought of a new life in the world was always exciting to me, even if, you know, the situation wasn't favorable. Not necessarily the way that the baby would have come about. That's not what I mean by that. I mean, as far as the simple fact that she's 15, 16, by the time she would have had the baby, she would have been 16. Like, you know, she would have been a very young mother. So even though that situation was also in my mind, it was more like, you know, this could be a good thing. Because she talked about needing something to love and wanting this and that. And so it's hard to get into the specifics, but, you know, I remember feeling angry, to be honest, angry because I wanted to know how. Like, was this from that situation you told me about? And then she was just like, no, I had sex. And it's just like, from everything that I knew at the time, and you know, that was back then. I know a lot more now, but back then I thought, you know, if something like that happened, you were traumatized and you wouldn't want anybody to touch you. You wouldn't want anything to do with that sex or something, or anybody, to be honest. And so I didn't understand like how this could happen. And to this day, I can't say 100% that was a lie. I never had any proof, and she never wanted to go forward with it. I did get the advice from the science teacher that, you know, to encourage that person to tell, that keeping it a secret doesn't help anybody, and that her talking about it might give her closure and be able to get justice for what happened. So that's what I did. I tried to talk to her. She got very defensive and didn't want to talk about it, so I didn't keep pushing it. After a while, you know, I felt like that would be worse, you know, making her constantly relive it, rethink about it every time I brought it up. So that was that. But then, you know, over the months, she's getting bigger because she's pregnant. I'm still spending time with her. You know, I want to be there for her. But the other drama didn't stop. Like all the other stuff, like, you know, that her mother's abusive, you know, and that, you know, she doesn't support her in this baby, which come to find out her mom was super supportive of her. You know, she wasn't happy about the situation that she got pregnant and was going to have a baby at 16, but she was very supportive of the pregnancy, making sure that she got to her doctor's appointments, was always there for her. And it's just like, why make up that when there are people out there that are having real issues with their parent, or real issues with, you know, their significant other, or just all these things that she would say. And then eventually it got to be too much. Like, I had my own stuff, I had my own drama, I had my other friends' drama, you know, and I absorbed all of it, because it was just like, if you brought it to me, It was my problem now. It's my problem, and I want to be there for you in any way that I can. I can't go places with you. I can't go to your doctor's appointment with you, but I can talk to you. I can walk with you after school. I can do whatever I can. And between her up and down fits of, one day she's my best friend and she loves me. The other day I'm her sister and she loves me. The next day she hates my guts and she doesn't want me to say a word to her. The next day she thinks that I'm keeping these grandiose secrets from her. And now I realize that she accused me of all these things because she was doing it. She was lying, and she thought that I was the same type of person she was, and I wasn't. I didn't have anything to lie about. I didn't have anything to hide. I wasn't sleeping with anybody. I wasn't pregnant. I hadn't had any type of situation that I needed to lie about. But that intensity to constantly be on edge because you never know what's going to come out of that person's mouth, it got to me. It was too much at some point, and I started to withdraw. I started to kind of not, like, if I saw her in class, great, I would talk to her. I would sit next to her most of the time if she wasn't acting crazy, and stuff like that. And then she had her baby. But I would say at the time that she had her baby, it was either right before the end of the year or into the summer, because by the time school started back, she had already had her baby. So she started back school, and by then I already had I had other friends. Like I had, those group of friends that I told you about in the first month of school, and then I had my other friends. Like I had my best friend, we'll call her Kirsten. I had my best friend Kirsten, and then I had, other associates, people that I really, talked to during class, walked in the hall with, such, not anything super serious, because as I said, I couldn't go anywhere. So if I couldn't go anywhere, it's not like I could make these friendships that, are lifetime friendships, I guess. At least that's what it felt like. And she came back to school, and it just started up again. I didn't talk to her all of summer, so you gotta think it was like an emotional break from the craziness and the stress all the time. And then we came back to school, and she wanted to start it all up again, and I just couldn't, to the point where I had a moment. I had a moment in school. I fainted. Like the sheer stress of it all. It was just too much. It was too much. And I happened to be in the hallway. I think I was I think it was lunchtime, and I just wasn't going into the lunchroom. So I roamed the halls. I was one of those kids that roamed the halls, but at least it was my lunch period, and it was Kirsten's lunch period as well. And so since it was Kirsten's lunch period, she just, hung around me, and we walked the hallways, and we stayed out of trouble. We just were walking and talking and stuff like that. And then these group of boys came up to us and were just talking, and they were talking to her, and then some of them were talking to me, and but we're feet apart, and I was just like, he was like, "That's your sister?" And I'm like, "No, that's my best friend." And that was the first time I had ever called her my best friend in front of her, or said anything about her being my best friend. And she was she was like, "Really?" And from that moment, we were like inseparable for most of high school. But in that day, she was kind of like hanging out with her boyfriend at that time, and they were talking about something. And I remember just thinking, like, what am I gonna do? Like, what should I do? What could I do? How can I make this different? How can I? At this time, she wasn't talking to me. She wasn't acknowledging my existence. It was just one of those times that she decided that I wasn't a human being and didn't deserve to be talked to. And I fainted, and they saw me on the ground. And I remember my eyes were closed, but I could hear, I just couldn't move. Like I could hear, but it seemed kind of echoey, like I was in a tunnel. And I heard Kristen, and she was like, "Oh no." And she ran up, like, I remember her thinking that I just, was pretending, and she ran up to me and was like, "Get up." And then she saw that I wasn't moving or reacting, and she's like, "Oh no," and like ran off. And I don't know like exactly where she went. She might have just like went to the edge of the hallway and like called down, because on the edge of every hallway was like a guard, security guard, to just make sure that people aren't doing anything in the hallways they shouldn't be doing. So she might have just ran down and called, but I know that she brought some people back. She brought someone back to help me, but by then I was already up. I was up. I was, you know, pretty much coherent. I just felt a little woozy. They took me down to the office and they wanted me to call my mother, and I refused. I was like, no, you're not gonna, and they were like, there has to, you know, somebody needs to be responsible for you. And the only person I could think of was my big sister. And so they went and got her. They got her out of class. And so then there was somebody who came and talked to both of us, and you know, the woman was initially worried of why I didn't want to call my mother. And you know, me and my mother didn't have that type of relationship, especially back then, and I did not want to call her because I did not want to hear her yelling at me about anything. And the only thing I could think was she would yell at me. She'll yell at me because I fainted, and I'm not dealing with it. I'm not dealing with it. So she comes down, she's all worried about me, and I'm thinking to myself, that's all it took. Passing out for you to know that I exist. But